All right, welcome back. It's still AM 120 on the Broadcasting Corporation of Oyo State. Of course, do not forget that we're discussing issues in President Tinubu's New Year message. And we have our second guest in the studio with us. We have, of course, our political analyst, and of course, there's no one but Mr. Badejoko Adesumbo. Mr. Badejoko, you're welcome and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you too.
It's good to see you in 2025.
Same here. Good morning, our viewers. And Happy New Year, everybody.
Okay, so let's quickly delve into the conversation. When the president was reading out his messages, to my mind, the president was speaking or wrote as if 2024 never came. You know, it's like telling you, like, look, close the road and start afresh. And it seemed like he was so hopeful. He's so prepared, like things have actually changed completely for Nigerians. What's your take about that message?
Well, I didn't have opportunity to listen to him live, so I couldn't really decode the emotion.
The body language.
But I read the content of the text, and there I can pick out the tone. And from what I see, I agree with you, you know. But what I will add is that I think a president spoke in a manner that, okay, I understand that 2024 has been tough, but 2025 will be better. Which, if you link that to his mantra, renewed hope, you can say, okay, he's actually speaking in line with what he promised the nation. And of course, in between, he tried to say some things that will be in the forefront of the agenda, especially in the first quarter of this year. That's the way a normal president will speak, especially at this time. You understand? Whether or not Nigerians believe him, and that's one area that he really needs to improve upon, because the trust level is at the lowest.
Okay. So we have seen New Year messages of past presidents. I'd like you to compare this message with those messages.
If I want to make comparison, I may not be fair. Why? Is because, this prevailing circumstance leading to that new year is what actually will inform what the content of the message will be and how the people have fared in the last year. So if you want to look at that, Nigerians have actually endured much in 2024. So, and throughout 2024, like 3 to 4 times the president spoke to the people. And of course, he had the first media chat in between, which when I viewed that, I said, well, you ought to have been doing this, because for the first time, people had an idea that those who do not believe that you are the one in charge now know that, yes, most of these policies are actually from his mind. The media chat revealed all of that. But he didn't do it on time. Now he had to back that up, like within a matter of weeks interval, with this New Year message. And most Nigerians, I told you I didn't listen to it live. One, the publicity was not there that he was going to speak. In fact, people were not even expecting to hear from him, because he just had a media chat few weeks back.
When is our president supposed to give us a speech?
Well, it's not compulsory that you must have a New Year speech. You understand? Though the military days, they used to merge it with the budget for the year. You know, as he's reading the New Year message, he will also roll out the budget, because during the military, they don't have to present any budget to the National Assembly. Why? There was no National Assembly during the military era. So we had, especially during Babangida time, we used to have a combination of the two. But flip over to the democracy, we have to deal with the budgeting separately, and of course, the New Year message will come separately. So that's why most people maybe were not. And the fact that, as tough as the year was, so we made it into the new year. So those are the kind of feelings that people had, so
let-
they were not even
let's
expecting
let's
anybody
talk about
to
those
talk.
feelings now. Let's talk about those feelings, those reactions that we saw. I saw a lot of words, phrases being used, signposting gloom, in reaction to that. Some people said it was self-satisfying posturing that the president was doing. They said he was disconnected from the realities of 2024 and what could, bode in 2025. When you look at all the points raised by several people, and they're saying, okay, there's a lot of problems from different parties, not just the PDP now. We also had the TUC speaking, and there was a lot of reactions that were not so good. And it's like there's a pointer towards 2025, which, like the previous guest said, perceptions. Now, what do we do? How do we address this perceptions? Because you yourself, in your introduction, you alluded to the fact that trust is a huge one for Nigeria presently, trusting the government and the leaders.
It is, and I don't know how the president will beat that, but there's a way he can do it.
How?
If Nigerians begin to now feel, not just see, the results of the reforms, you understand? If their life is faring better, if the inflation, as he promised, will come down to 15%, is actually nosediving from 34% to that 15%, then people will begin to now gradually begin to believe in what the government.
Do you
Okay,
think that will
so
happen
Do
this
you
year?
think we're going to get to that 15%? And how soon?
anything is possible.
How?
It depends on the willingness of those. For the president himself, I think the political will is there. But for Nigerians working with him, for those in the civil service, for those in the organized sector, we have this way of doing things that is counterproductive. And in that manner, we may not really get to 15%, but I see the inflation coming down anyway.
Cool.
But we may not get to 15%.
So you agree with most of what the president raised in that message?
And when you say agree, that means we're on the same page.
It's possible. Anything can happen.
We are not on the same page.
Okay.
But the thing is, I've been following his moves. There are moves he has made, which I know for sure as a social commentator, as someone who is knowledgeable in politics, and of course, who follow the economic trend and pattern. These are the measures, quite. But there are problems with the timing and the fact that some of them had to be, muddled up. Where I expect some that you're supposed to prepare the mind of the people for the heat. But when you just fire the bullet at them without letting them know, and you're saying they shouldn't complain about the pain. So these are things that he has done wrong.
Okay.
Reason best known to him, which I do not agree with. Then the frivolities at the government's hand too. When you compare the two, you can't really say, because in the face of outsiders, you're borrowing, you're wasting money, you are doing a contractionary monetary policy.
Would you say wasting money? They're renovating. They're working on parts.
These are things that can wait. Do you understand?
In light of the present
These
situation.
are things that can wait. Do you understand? Like the VP Lodge, the former VP did not sleep on the streets. He was sleeping somewhere. You understand? Why would you do that now, especially at a time where you have to introduce all these reforms? Those are the things that led to that mistrust.
Okay.
You understand? Those are the origin of the disillusionment on the part of the masses. So these are things that he, as a president, isn't sensitive about. You need to really mobilize the national consensus behind your policy. And how do you do that? You lead by example. You want us to tighten? You don't buy that Airbus now. You delay it because you can still do with other aircraft that we have. Or better still, you limit your travels. Do you understand what I'm saying? So these are things that I expect to have been done that were not done, that couldn't have made us to be on the same page.
Let's look at some of the key points. I have 5 of them listed in here that I picked myself. The first one is economic optimism. You were talking about something, and you're painting a figure of hope. The optimism being there, it raised a lot of questions in light of what happened in 2024, and then the tax reform bill that is supposed to come to any moment from now, despite the uproar around it. Says be optimistic. Inflation, you mentioned it already. We're also talking about the National Credit Guarantee Company. Now, that's a huge one because you're painting a picture of hope for us, but then you're saying there's a National Credit Guarantee Company coming through.
That one, I see him, there's nothing that this president is doing that he has not told us he's going to do.
Really?
Yeah. It's just that during the campaign, most people were looking at his gymnastics at the rally.
Can you imagine?
But then, this
Gymnastics.
is the
But
system. The
he
country.
spoke in two places. Those are the places where he actually made the people know. When he addressed the National Economic Summit Group, that was when he rolled out all these policies. In fact, he was even emphatic about the subsidy removal.
So
That whether you protest from now till December, subsidy will be. He was so emphatic about
He
it.
gave us the heads up back then.
You understand? He said it. He didn't hide any of it. But people were so carried away with those blue, blah, something. And that was what they were looking at. And only a few people that were actually paying attention, those who were not looking at the rallies, but those summit meetings. Because those people you are going to meet are not people you can just take for granted. They want to hear certain things from you. So at those places, he spoke. And he had outlined all of this. The reason why that credit thing is coming up is because he said at that place that when you give people access to credit, that this idea of you want to buy a car, you have to go with full cash and pay everything 100% is not helping. But when you have a credit scheme that you can get the car and be paying gradually, he said, let me use his word now, you have reduced the propensity for corruption. That was the way he said it. And in fairness, why are people corrupt? Their salaries is not enough. And they have ambitions. They want to enjoy life. And they have to pay 100%. For instance, go to a developing site where people are trying to put up houses. In some areas, you may see somebody just 2 rooms on the plot of land and is residing there. You understand? And while he's there, he begins to add more to design to the structure. And maybe over a period of 10 years, he completes the whole thing. And that is when he now begins to enjoy the full facility. But with the credit scheme, you have a mortgage system, guaranteed, meaning that you start enjoying the facility from the one that you move into the house, and you can pay over a period of the same 10 years. But when that is not available, you are on your own.
I have questions now, because first question is, do you think Nigerians have good credit attitude, behavioral patterns? We can see it the way we roll.
When you're not used to something, you may not really understand how it works. But one thing is that change is a constant thing. When in countries where these things are operational, they didn't start in a day. And I'm sure by the time those things were first introduced in those countries, there will be some teething problems. People will not embrace it at the initial stage. So this one, some of us had been agitating for this. This is what we ought to be. And that's why you look at Ibadan, for instance, or your state. There is no development plan being followed. You go to some communities, this building is facing the east, the next one beside it is facing the west. You don't see layout. You understand? Why? Because everybody had to put up structure by themselves. But when you have a scheme like that, it means those structures, the entire area would have been mapped out, the structural design would have been there, and the buildings would come up.
What will happen to their money there?
That would have been bypassed because it will be in partnership with the government. This administration in Oyo State is trying to do that. My reservation is that those structures coming up are not meant for common people. And they will end up being unoccupied, like we have in some estates that are all over the place.
I think those ones not occupied is because of the distance. I mean, there's no structure that would be, within
It may not be because of the distance.
I
if
think
it is
so.
too expensive, people would stay away
There are
from it.
people who can afford it, and
I
they
mean-
buy. So
I mean-
maybe what you could have advocated for was for government to look at, less expensive structures for the people.
They don't consult, and they give to developers that are, they want to make quick money. And those ones will say they want to build to taste, to the satisfaction of those who can afford it. And they want to collect 100%. They are not building for mortgage purposes. You understand? That's why it's not really working in the way it ought to work. That's why the middle class can't even afford. And anything that the middle class cannot afford is already a failure from the start. Because
Do we even have any middle class?
we still do. It's just that their purchasing power has eroded. And that's why they don't appear middle anymore. Understand? We belong to that class, for instance.
Can we still
Really?
We cannot compare ourselves to the beggars on the streets.
but
Can
then-
we?
But then they say people in the middle class, so to speak, in quote now, are just one sickness, one health issue away from, belonging to the poor.
Yeah, because the privileges that they used to enjoy time past had been taken away through negligence on the part of the government as regards their welfare, due to some policies that affected them the most and all of that. So these are things that has really, but the class still exists. It's just that the way they socialize, the way they do things at the level is no longer there. They couldn't afford. They could not afford to do those things any longer. So that's why it seems they've disappeared. But the truth of the matter is, if you live in a flat and you are not a rich person, then you're a middle class.
Okay, let's look at the issue of confab being planned for this year, the first quarter for youth. How do you think this will impact the country?
That is one area that we are not on the same page. When he first said it last year, I was like, what is all this now? We have had confabs in the past. We had one in 2005. We had one in 2014. People are spoken. And it's not that those people that gathered in 2005 and 2014 were all old men. There were young people among them who definitely had advanced the position of the younger population. You understand? And we don't even need a confab to really get what the young people. Just assign some people to monitor the social media. You will get the mind of the young people there. Because that is where they are free to express themselves. Do a survey on social media, you know what the young people want, and give it to them without really gathering some people in one place, polish them, take care of them, give them that government largesse for some weeks, and at the end of the day, you teleguide whatever they will discuss, or you allow them to talk, do the talking. When it comes to the reports, you collect it from them, we look into it, you allow it to gather those in the shelf, which has been the case with the previous confabs. So I am not in support of that confab in any way. It will be a sheer waste of money, waste of time, an attempt to pacify some younger population. Because you have been talking about this confab. Up till now, we do not know the criteria for selection. Will those people be elected into that confab, or will some people who sit down in one room in Aso Rock and begin to put names of their cronies there? These are things that...
The way the president, or will I say the presidency, melted the minds of young people as they tried to protest in 2024, does it not still cause for questioning? In yesteryears, when people prepare to go, protest on the streets, I don't think we have ever had it that funny. That people will just sleep and wake up and say, look, we have decided we're no longer going to join. I grew up in this country. And when it was time for protest, everybody would be prepared.
We had then organized body, students' union, labor movements that actually, power these protests in a way, if I may use that word. They are the ones that lead the protest. But of recent, those organized bodies are either no longer organized or have been infiltrated. For instance, when you have a student union president or a leader of the student body
Denounced.
who is around 50-something years old, and his studentship status in whichever institution he claims to have belong is questionable, and yet is representing this organized student body, you begin to ask questions. Do you understand? When you have such a student body using an official car, going back about in entourage, you understand, on government-branded plate numbers, and you begin to ask me, would that person have the moral grounds to organize any protest against the government that is bankrolling his office? So when you begin to have that situation, those are reasons why those kind of protests, the only one that is closest to that we've had in recent past is the NSAS protest.
Do you think the ripple effects from whatever happened at the NSAS, are what we are seeing presently when it comes to, agitations and protests, organized, if a huno, like they say?
If the NSAS had not been compromised, it gave those people, those that were actually on the streets, the opportunity to change certain things. But when they were called upon, they refused that moment to negotiate. They want to continue to fight on it. That was why the whole thing ended up in that disaster. But it was an eye-opener. You understand? What it would have led to was what later happened in Bangladesh. It was the student body that started the protest. We will go to school. We will graduate. When it's time for us to get a job, you will now say only 40% of us can be employed. The remaining 60% is reserved for children of past leaders. Where is that ever done? You either scrap the quota, or you adjust it to favor us. That was what started the protest. And they were on it days, weeks. The Prime Minister was not paying attention until she could no longer contain the situation. She had to resign and flee the country. Now, almost about the same time, William Ruto had to face his own in Kenya.
Yeah.
So when you look at all these things, that was what the NSAS was supposed to. That's the way it was supposed to be. But when you had, and they were not marrying, they were just being serious. But in a situation where at the protest grounds, some people will be drinking beer, you understand? And somebody will be speaking to the camera, I don't drink, I don't chop, I will come every day. You understand what I'm saying? Those who are viewing this will be, are this guy serious at all? So these are things that was the dimension the NSAS went, which make the whole thing to end up in disaster. And if you are protesting against the government at the national level, the right place to gather is the capital, the seat of power. You don't choose one corner in a state of the federation and you say you want to get the attention of those in Abuja. You should march on Abuja. Those are the shortcomings of the NSAS. Those that were protesting in Bangladesh gathered at the capital. Those in Kenya did not go anywhere else apart from Nairobi. So when you look at all these things, that was how they were able to, when you are close to these people, they know you have taken the battle to them, they will become jittery. And they were actually jittery, even though the protest was holding in Lagos. So, and if you look at how government has been now responding from that period, you will see that they were always being cautious. You understand? And it's also had its role. It influenced the 2023 election in a way. Because the president that emerged, if you look at the figure, is the most unpopular president we have ever elected in this country.
Why do you use that word?
8 million plus.
Okay.
That's a very insignificant, because even his predecessor got 15 million. You understand? So, and we are supposed to have had more people on the voters register, more PVC collected, improved participation. But what did we have? The winner won with just 8.1 million votes. So that's why I said he's the most unpopular president. And if you had the vote of the opposition together, it actually outnumbers his own.
But he's one president who is, harping on, ethical principles, national unity, imbibing national values, and of course, is pointing out the National Values Charter as well as a stronger national orientation campaign. Do you think that this will work, especially given that it's adding that youthful energy with the youth inclusivity?
Yes, he knows that that is the way to go. Because if you look at the polity, for instance, had been heavily battered due to all manner of religious and ethnic attacks that has always come upon it. And we have a situation, especially going into, it was a very divisive election that we had in 2023. And of course, the result actually shows that too. So, imagine out of that situation, a right-thinking person would definitely be looking into 2027. We must not continue in this pattern. We have to ensure that people have that sense of belonging again. We have to make sure that people see themselves as Nigerians, not just I'm Yoruba, I'm Fulani, I'm Igbo, which is currently the order of the day. We should be seeing beyond religious sentiments. You understand? Not that some people will be doing all manner of things in the name of religion, and the custodian of that religion will begin to say, no, what you are doing is alien to us. It is not in any way in our religious ethics.
I'm interested in putting this one to you because someone muted it, and it got me asking myself questions ever since. In view of all the things we have faced in time past under the current presidency, if he actually gets to circumvent 60% of the challenges we are facing, if he surmounts those challenges and he overcomes, do you think he will become Nigeria's best president in history for now?
That is if, as you have put it, if he's able to, see through all his policies. For instance, I appreciate one thing. The refineries are working. These are things that
I was coming there.
Was not possible. You understand?
All of a sudden.
And one thing Nigerians have not bothered to pay attention to is administration has not voted an extra penny for those refineries. It was the money released by Buhari's regime or administration that were still being used.
Now, do you think that this is still about his political will? Is what has given us this result? Because, again, the Warri refinery has been, reopened. And I'm asking myself, so every year, in the last how many years, we have been maintaining these refineries.
Putting money there.
Putting money, and sometimes they say they're, all manner of grammar.
Turn around maintenance.
Yes, and here we are. In the last span of this administration, barely how many years, those refineries are working. Is it that he has told someone that if it does not work, you're going to be in serious trouble? Or somebody's just scared that if he makes some moves, they'll be in trouble. I don't know. I can't place it. I'm confused. So many Nigerians.
No, thinking aloud, I think because he himself happens to be a stakeholder in that sector. So there's really nothing that those people can hide from him. You understand? There's no grammar you want to speak about the oil and gas that the president does not understand outside of government. And now he has not appointed a substantive minister of petroleum.
The same thing others have been doing.
Meaning that he still decides what goes on in that. Yeah, I was initially quarreling with him that he has not bothered to take a tour of this facility. I expect him to have visited Port Harcourt, move around those refineries to see, okay, firsthand, so that his presence would actually do some things. But even at that, the refineries are still coming up board.
I'm afraid.
I'm curious now. These areas are areas where a lot of people have questions security-wise. And we know that there have been some, insurgency, some military not too far from that area. Are you thinking it's sustainable?
He did something. He used what the military would call non-kinetic measure. before he took oath of office, he actually visited that region. And when he got elected and he took oath of office, one of the first meetings he had were with some stakeholders,
Yeah.
people who had influence, like James Sibori. And the aftermath of that was that our daily oil production began to rise. These are things that the media, even the presidency, is not speaking about. But those of us who observe things could link together that, yes, he had been able to penetrate these people to allow certain things to go because he knows that they have influence over these people. He's expecting the same thing to happen in the north.
I was going there.
From the northern leaders too. But he has put their people there in charge of defense. But they're not defending anything. They're rather complaining about other things. And he has decided to leave them alone. Yeah, well, no problem. By the time you embarrass yourself very well, perhaps you begin to now look in this direction. But he is doing some other things that will emancipate the people. For instance, when he brought in the tax reform bills, there was outcry from northern leaders, not the masses. Why? They have refused to educate the masses, so the who do not understand whether or not that bill is to their advantage or not. But those people who know that all these things he wants to introduce will affect their own interests are the ones that are speaking. And they are speaking because they always speak for the North, and they are saying that, well, it is anti-North. It is not anti-North. It's supposed to be a national thing. Someone was saying that it's meant to favor Lagos. And when I look at the VAT clause, Lagos will even lose more than it's getting now. So where is it going to favor Lagos? So these are things that those people are not doing. And it's trying to reach out to them. But because I think they are so power-drunk, they are so power-centric, they always believe that, yes, everything about them is politics. And when that seems not to be going in their favor, now they're in a dilemma. What is the dilemma? The party that they could have really mobilized into is the main opposition party. I will not mention names now. And the last 2 or 3 elections, they have produced a northern candidate. They lost this last election because they were not supposed to produce a northern candidate, but somebody from the south. Now, some people are saying, no, we still want it to be a northern candidate and there's a division. Now, some other people are saying, come, we already have a southern man there. If you would support a southern person and he wins, it means the North will wait for another 8 years. Why not just support this one that is there and let the North just know that it's 4 years that we have to endure? That is the way they think. Politics. They are not thinking about the economy in the larger scales and how they would revive agriculture, which is the strength of that region. How their textile industry will come back to life so that they would give jobs to their people. It is these people that do not have jobs. The president says something out of what he said at that summit group, that any man that can cock a gun to shoot can drive a tractor. What does that mean? That it means he has that technical understanding to be economically productive and not just be a security threat, which they have turned them to be. Do you understand? So that is what he's trying to, and he has given them a leverage, setting up a livestock ministry, meaning that what you will separate the livestock from the crop production and run them in a different way.
Stylishly sorting out the issue of ranching.
You understand? Because I used to talk to my people in the south that come, especially here in Oyo State, that whether we like it or not, ranching is the way forward. Elder farmer crisis is an age-long crisis, but some countries have overcome it, and this is the way they went about it. If we don't go that route as a nation, that means we're not serious. So if we want to really overcome it too, we have to do it in the way that those that have overcome have actually done it. So these are things that the government is doing, but they need to do something to bridge that trust gap. I will not do it for them. I'm not in government.
What's that something?
They have to really carry the people along. There are certain things they are doing. Bring down the cost of governance. It would to not take anything away from you. You understand?
Do you think this government can do that?
Well, if you look at the content of the year's budget, they are not doing it in that budget. The budget is what will spell it out. So I would now believe that maybe they would introduce some other policies that would accelerate the process of bringing down the inflation. Because now, petrol is now below 1,000 naira. That's a welcome development. We want it to go down further.
Okay.
To like 500 that it was at the inception of this administration. If petrol goes to 500, then it will have maybe not significant impact, but at least a measure of impact on the prices, overall prices of commodities, which will be as a sort of relief for people whose minimum wage has gone up. You understand? Will now have more money because people do not have savings. They are running in debt.
Okay.
That is adding to the debt per capita of the country, which is around 600,000. You and I are owing that.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your insights today, Mr. Balejo Kwadesumbo. It's a pleasure to have you again join us on the conversations, issues in President Tinubu's New Year message. Well, he is a political analyst, and of course, he has actually shared some very insightful thoughts right here this morning. Well, at this point, we have to take another break, and of course, that is 4 sports updates on AM 120. Thank you very much. Stay tuned.